Ecclesiastes chapter 11 verse 1 contains a wonderful biblical custom that speaks to us about trust and about the wise use of our resources and about delayed gratification. Here's the verse in the English Standard Version. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. What a wonderful verse. Cast your bread upon the waters. This is something God is asking you to do. Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. Of course, if we just understand English and the English meaning of bread, this verse is kind of confusing. I mean, I know, I fish a lot, and so I know what happens to bread in water. But I guarantee you, if you take a piece of bread like this and you throw it in the water, you're not going to find it after many days. In fact, you're likely not going to find it after many minutes because it's going to fall apart. It's going to dissolve. So what is the Bible talking about when it says, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days? To understand this, we have to know more about biblical farming and what the weather was like in the Bible and how the farmers worked. Because the Israel has a very Mediterranean climate. And that means that from, say, mid to late April, usually, and I'm giving a usual year. Every once in a while you'll get a year that, the rains will go a little longer or stop a little shorter, just like some winters where you live or where I live. Some winters are worse, some winters are better. But usually speaking, by mid to late April, it's quit raining. It rains through the winter, through the spring. Mid to late April, it quits raining. And then May, June, July, August, September, there's no rain. Absolutely no rain. And the only natural water comes from dew. Then in October, the rains start again. And this, by the way, in the Bible is what's called the former rains. If you go to church very often, listen to some of the old church hymns, you hear about the former rains and the latter rains. The former rains come in October and November, and they wet the ground. Now this ground, as you can imagine, has been baked by the hot sun for months, and it's hard as a rock. And there's no way that you're going to plow that land, and you're certainly not going to try to grow anything on it. You're not going to take seed and scatter it on rock-hard, dry ground. No farmer would do that. The seed wouldn't grow. But now it comes to early October, and the rain starts falling, and the ground starts to soften. And as we go into the month of October, the rain becomes harder, and you got puddles starting to form, and the farmers start to plow. And of course, all their plows are very, very surface plows. They're not like our big mechanical plows today that dig into the ground and churn up the dirt. The plows in the Bible times are what we call scratch plows. Usually they were a stick. Sometimes the farmer might have had a blade of copper or iron, but sometimes he couldn't afford one of those. He'd hook up his ox or oxen, and then behind that he would lean on this sharp stick or this blade and just push it into the ground as deep as he could. Well, you try that. Take a piece of ground and get a stick and just see by leaning on it how deep you can get it and have an ox pull it forward. You can bet it's just scratching the surface of the ground. So the rains are coming down and the ground is being scratched and so that there's loose soil turned up and the water's puddling around, and now you've got your grain. And of course, see, this is wheat. This is wheat seed that I've got right here, and all you have to do to get wheat, you've got a choice with this. I could eat it just like it is. I could plant it in the ground and it would grow more wheat, or I could grind it into flour and make bread out of it. Of course, obviously, what we're used to is people either taking it and sowing it into the ground. We never see it. We never see the grain that is sown into the ground. But this very easily could be sown just like it is in the ground. Or I don't have to grind it into flour. One of the ways that they ate wheat and carried it around, very portable, was just like this. You might want to parch it over a flame and then just eat it like it is. So even like it is, it's food, it's bread. And it's my resources. And God says, look, take this resource, take this wonderful resource, take this grain that you've got and cast it onto the water that's sitting in the field that you've just plowed up. Why? Because you'll find it in many days. And so what are some of my other options? Well, some of my other options I could say, are you kidding? I've got this right now. I'm going to eat it. And I could take my grain and I could just eat it rather than plant it. Or I might say, no, I've always wanted this, whatever it is, I've always wanted a new robe or a new pair of sandals or something, whatever they wanted in the Bible, or even a plow, a new plow or something. So I'm going to sell it and buy something. And biblically, anytime you or I have a resource, we have to make a decision about how we're going to spend that resource. Here I've got this resource of grain, and I can just eat it and feel good right now, or I can sell it and get myself something to feel good, or I can sow it into the world. I can sow it and get more. And that's going to take trust, and it's going to take delayed gratification. And God says, that's why he says, cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days. He's not telling us about sowing. I mean, sure, it tells us about sowing grain. But his lesson here is, take your resources. Don't just eat them. Don't just spend them. But put them out there for God to work with. There's so many things that we have. We have our time. We have our money. Galatians chapter 6, verse 9 says, and let us not grow weary in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we don't give up. Doing good is like casting your grain out. We have our own time. We have our own resources. Now we have a choice. Do I just use my own time? I'm just going to sit down in front of a TV set, in front of a computer game, and I'm just going to waste my life? Or am I going to find a way to sow my time into God's things, the things of God, into other people's lives, for example? And no wonder the Bible says don't grow weary in doing good, because sometimes when we take our time or our resources and sow them out, it just seems like we wasted them. So many times we're tempted to say, no, this is my money now, I'm going to spend it on me, rather than say maybe helping someone else with it. But the Bible guarantees us that if we will take our resources and sow them into God's things, take our time, take our money, take our material goods, and use them to help God's purposes, that we will be blessed back. And so God, in a very, very biblical way of custom, said to the people through Ecclesiastes 11:1, take your bread. Don't just eat it. Don't just sell it and get money to spend it on yourself, but cast it out upon the water. Cast that bread out there. You will find it in many days. I guarantee you, if you will sow your time and your material resources into the things of God, even if it doesn't look like you're reaping immediately, you will reap after many days. You will. Let's trust that.